The war unleashed by Israel's pursuit of the threat posed by Iran's nuclear program has revealed many cracks. Not least in Israel's so-called Iron Dome missile defense system. Once again, the night skies over Tel Aviv were striated by Iranian missiles. Some of them evading Israel's high-tech shield. Our correspondent was on the ground.
It is just coming up to 5 a.m. The strike happened about half an hour ago. You can see behind me, the fire crews are trying to put out something. Over to the side, we've got fire crews and search and rescue crews in a building over there. The front of it has collapsed. Unlike other strikes that we've been at over the last couple of days, this is the heart of Tel Aviv. Surrounded here, huge amounts of buildings and huge amounts of people.
Although many here have access to a shelter, there have been multiple deaths. In the Tel Aviv suburb of Petah Tikva, daylight brings a chance to inspect what's left.
After we received the alerts at night, we entered to the safe room. We waited. There was a siren. Within a minute and a half after the siren, we felt supersonic booms up there, very strong booms. Half a minute later, we felt the explosion inside the apartment, inside the building. We waited until they told us that we can exit the safe room. Thank God the safe room saved us, big time.
Iran also retaliating against Israeli infrastructure. Missiles hit the oil refinery in Haifa, although no casualties were reported there. Details of Israel's continued assault on Iran are much harder to verify. Israel says it's targeting military leadership and nuclear sites. In the city of Mossad by Iran's Afghan border, Israel attacked a refueling aircraft. Worshippers at the shrine start to run in confusion. A daylight strike on Tehran, purpose and target unclear, left many needing urgent hospital care. Iran's state media says 224 people have now been killed in Israeli attacks, of which they say 90% are civilians. Few people have shelters here, and there's no Iron Dome protecting population centers. Israel are now saying this isn't just about preventing Iran from getting nukes, but regime change.
We are now confronting the two greatest threats to our existence, the Iranian nuclear threat and the threat of Iranian ballistic missiles. These are existential threats, and we are acting to stop them.
The risk is it may just accelerate Iran's ambition for a bomb, pushing the beleaguered and elderly leadership into a corner, with many of their significant military and intelligence figures already killed.
We are by no means seeking to expand the war, but naturally, as our army, our powerful Revolutionary Guard Corps, and our dear people have shown, appropriate responses have been given so far. The more they try to escalate, naturally, the responses will become tougher and more severe. More innocent people may lose their lives.
There are reports that President Trump, who's now arrived for the G7, personally vetoed Israel's plan to assassinate Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, though this is denied by the Israelis.
I hope there's going to be a deal. I think it's time for a deal, and we'll see what happens, but sometimes they have to fight it out, but we're going to see what happens. I think there's a good chance there'll be a deal.
Thousands of miles from the Canadian Rockies, Israel appears to be achieving at least some of its goals, as global calls for de-escalation so far fall on deaf ears.
What do you think Israel is trying to achieve here? Do you think this is about nuclear disarmament or regime change?
The answer is complicated a little bit. It is first and foremost for the nuclear project. Iran has not come to an agreement with the U.S. administration, talking for 5 rounds of talks. There were indications, intelligence indications, that Iran was starting to do things that were in the direction of weaponization, and that is above the report of the IAEA that Iran has enough quantity of enriched uranium, high enriched uranium, for more than 10 devices if it decides to do it. So that was the first and the most important aim of the attack. Then there was also, as it was published by the Israeli government, the issue of the missiles, the ballistic missiles. Iran was producing more and more, and we see now the devastating capabilities of these missiles in Israel. As you know, there are a lot of casualties and very many houses that are destroyed. And the third might be also the regime. But this is not a direct aim, direct goal of the attack. It might deteriorate to that point in time, but it's not one of the goals.
That's interesting because it's been reported that Donald Trump has told Israel to abandon a plan to kill Ayatollah al-Khamenei. Do you think that Netanyahu will heed that? And do you think that was the plan?
So the formal Israel has denied that there was a plan and that there was no coming from Washington. I assume the correct answer is somewhere between, and probably the issue was this or other way raised between Israel and the US, even if Israel didn't put it yet as one of the targets, but following the other assassinations of the head of the IRGC, the head of the military, the intelligence, and others, and Shamkhani, who was the advisor to the leader, but was previously a defense minister and also head of the National Security Council. So I assume the issue was on the table, and I do think that, as I hear from Washington, that they said this should be out of the list.
And what do you think the ramifications of that would be were it to happen?
I personally think that Khamenei should be out of the excluded from the list of those who might be assassinated, because he is the head of a state. That doesn't mean that he is not also responsible for the IRGC and for all the malign activity of the IRGC in the Middle East and in Europe, in terror activities, but still he is the head of a state. Others think that he is head of a state that is a terror supporting state, and therefore he is different from others. But we'll see how things develop.
And to what extent do you see the US getting involved in this?
From the time being, I don't see the US being involved in operational attack. I do see the US involved in the defense of Israel. That's known. It's not a secret. And I think there is a lot of cooperation between Israel and the US, but not the US for the time being is not part of the attack on Iran.
There's been a big push for diplomacy from Israel's allies. Do you see this escalating? How do you see this playing out?
I think that we are just in the beginning. It's only the fourth day since Israel started. I think it's only the beginning, and it will take some days probably until diplomacy can get in. And I think that one of the issues of the goals of the attack was to bring Iran back to the negotiating table with a different position than it was before, and actually willing to give up the enrichment. I don't know if it will happen. I have my big doubts about that. But if Iran decides to do it, of course, the war will end and the negotiations with the US will start. But I don't think we are there yet.
What do you think Iran's leadership will do next? What do you expect to see from them?
I think they are, first of all, standing in a very, very dear situation. A very a surprise one. They didn't think Israel is going to do it. They didn't think Israel has all these capabilities that were shown in the first days. And I think there is a huge turmoil within the leadership. But they will continue to attack Israel as long as they can. They will try to go for an attrition war, where they believe that probably that Israel will be weaker than them. But of course, it's very risky, because at the end of the day, what stands before the leadership is the stability of the regime, and there is a big question mark whether the current situation where so many attacks are on Iran and the skies of Iran are open for Israeli Air Force, whether that encourages opposition groups in Iran or the regime. So that will be the calculus of the regime at the end of the day.
Sima Shine, thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome.